conference hall on Archon Prime was filled with representatives from 40 different species. Ambassador sat at the human delegation table, reviewing his notes one last time. He had spent 10 years of his life working toward this moment. Today, the Galactic Coalition would vote on the new trade agreements, and for the first time, humanity would have an equal voice. He was a patient man. He had to be. The alien species of the Coalition saw humans as children playing at galactic politics. They were newcomers, barely 30 years in space, while some species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Every meeting brought new insults, new obstacles, new reminders that humanity did not belong. But never lost his temper. He smiled through the condescension, nodded through the dismissals, and slowly, carefully, built relationships. He believed that understanding could bridge any gap, that patience would win where force could not. Captain Wu watched from the observation deck above. Her ship, the Defiant, was docked at the station, ready to escort the ambassador home after the summit. She did not share his optimism about the alien species, but she respected his dedication. The man worked 18-hour days and never complained. "How much longer?" her second officer asked. "Another hour, maybe two," Wu replied. "The delegation keeps stalling the vote." The Empire was the problem. They always were. A militaristic species with over 200 worlds that had opposed humanity's entry into the Coalition from the beginning. Their ambassador, a large creature covered in thick scales, had called humans aggressive primitives during the last session. Had responded by complimenting this military history and suggesting mutual defense cooperation. Wu had wanted to punch something. Down in the conference hall, the session finally resumed. Stood to address the council, his voice calm and steady. "Honored representatives, humanity comes before you not as conquerors or as beggars, but as partners. We offer our innovation, our determination, and our friendship. All we ask in return is to be treated with the same respect you show each other." Several delegates nodded. A few even applauded. The ambassador remained motionless, his dark eyes fixed on. Then the voting began. The resolution needed a two-thirds majority to pass. One by one, the species cast their votes. The count was close, closer than expected. When the final tally appeared on the displays, allowed himself a small smile. They had won by 3 votes. "The motion passes," the council speaker announced. "Humanity is granted full trade status within the Coalition." Bowed respectfully to the assembly. It was a small victory, but an important one. He gathered his documents and prepared to leave, already thinking about the celebration his team had planned back on the Defiant. He never saw the agents enter from the side corridor. Dr. No was walking beside, discussing the vote results, when she noticed movement in her peripheral vision. 3 soldiers, moving with purpose. She opened her mouth to shout a warning, but it was too late. The first shot hit in the chest. He stumbled, confusion crossing his face. The second shot followed immediately, fell to the floor, blood spreading across his formal diplomatic robes. Chaos erupted in the conference hall. Delegates screamed and dove for cover. The agents fired twice more into his body, making sure he was dead, then calmly holstered their weapons and raised their hands. Na dropped to her knees beside her friend, pressing her hands against the wounds, but she already knew. Eyes were empty, staring at nothing. She felt tears streaming down her face as security forces swarmed the scene. On the observation deck, Wu watched in horror as medical teams rushed into the hall. She activated her communicator with shaking hands. "This is Captain to all human personnel. Emergency lockdown protocol. No one leaves the station. Secure the ambassador immediately." "Captain," her communications officer replied, his voice hollow. "The ambassador is dead. I'm seeing it on the live feed. They killed him in front of everyone." Wu gripped the railing hard enough to hurt. "Get me a secure line to Earth, right now." The ambassador addressed the council while security dragged away his soldiers. He showed no remorse, no concern. His voice was cold and matter-of-fact. The human ambassador interfered in matters beyond his understanding. His proposals would have weakened the Coalition's military readiness. This action was necessary to protect our interests. We accept full responsibility. Several delegates shouted in outrage, but the ambassador continued. "Humans are too primitive to grasp the complexities of galactic politics. They are emotional, impulsive, and dangerous. This was a lesson, nothing more. Perhaps now they will understand their place." Wu listened to the broadcast from the observation deck. Her hands were clenched into fists. Around her, her officers stood in stunned silence. One of them, a young lieutenant, was crying openly. "Captain," her tactical officer said quietly, "what are our orders?" "We wait," Wu said, though every instinct screamed at her to act. "We protect our people, secure the ambassador's body, and we wait for Earth to respond." The secure communication came through an hour later. Admiral Sung-ho's face appeared on her screen, his expression carved from stone. Captain, report. Ambassador is dead, sir, assassinated by agents during the council session. They admitted to it publicly. They're calling it a lesson for humanity. There was a long silence. When spoke again, his voice was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it more frightening. Bring him home, Captain. Bring all our people home safely. And Captain, tell them to prepare. Everything is about to change. Wu swallowed hard. Understood, sir. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Ambassador's murder was broadcast across every network, every feed, every screen. The footage showed him falling, showed him dying, showed the ambassador's dismissive words. Humanity had spent 30 years being patient, 30 years being diplomatic, 30 years swallowing insults and proving they belonged among the stars. Had been the best of them, a man who believed in peace above all else, and they had murdered him for it in front of the entire galaxy as a lesson. The Global Assembly convened an emergency session. Every nation, every territory, every off-world colony sent representatives. For once, there were no arguments, no debates, no disagreements. Admiral stood before them and spoke 5 simple words that would change everything. They have made their choice. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Sung-ho stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's United Fleet headquarters. Around him, holographic displays showed the position of every human ship in known space. There were more than the galaxy suspected, many more. Status report, he said calmly. General Park Sung stepped forward. All military forces are at full readiness. The 1st Marine Expeditionary Force can deploy within 6 hours. The 5th and 7th fleets have already begun moving towards staging positions. Good, what about our special projects? Chief Engineer Woo Jinho pulled up another display. The stealth corvettes are operational, all 15 of them. They don't know they exist, neither does anyone else. Nodded slowly. For 30 years, humanity had been building. While the galaxy dismissed them as primitives, human engineers had been designing weapons. While aliens laughed at their small fleet, humanity had been constructing ships in hidden shipyards beyond the outer colonies. Every insult had been recorded, every act of sabotage documented, every slight remembered, and now they would show the galaxy what humans could do when diplomacy failed. What about the Cyber Warfare Division? Asked. A young woman stepped forward, Colonel Han Bora, leader of the Reaper Special Forces. Sir, we've been monitoring communications for 8 years. We know their command codes, their fleet positions, their defense networks. Doctor's team cracked their encryption last year. Expression remained neutral, but inside, he felt a cold satisfaction. Dr. Na had watched her best friend die. Now she was helping to bring justice. The Global Assembly wants an immediate military response, General Park said carefully. Public opinion is demanding action. No, replied, not yet. We give them one chance, one opportunity to do the right thing. He turned to the communications officer. Send for Ambassador Haewon. It's time for her to go to work. Ambassador arrived at Archon Prime 3 days after his funeral. She came in a single diplomatic ship, escorted by only one destroyer. The aliens saw this as weakness. They were wrong. Was not like. She had served as a military prosecutor for 15 years before joining the diplomatic corps. She did not believe in patience for its own sake. She believed in justice. The Coalition Council assembled quickly. The ambassador sat in his usual place, looking smug and satisfied. He expected another speech about peace, another plea for understanding. Stood before the council and spoke clearly. The Empire has 48 hours to surrender those responsible for Ambassador's murder. They will face trial under coalition law. They will answer for their crime. The ambassador laughed. Or what? You will file a complaint, send a strongly worded message. Humanity has no power here. Expression never changed. If the Empire refuses, humanity will consider itself released from all coalition restrictions on military action. We will seek justice by other means. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted at each other, demanding order, calling for sanctions. The council speaker banged his gavel repeatedly. Ambassador, a delegate from the Tarn Federation said, surely you do not mean war. They have 200 worlds and 10,000 warships. This would be suicide. That is for them to decide, replied, 48 hours. She left the chamber without waiting for dismissal. The response came 6 hours later. They sent a battle group to Earth's solar system, 12 heavy cruisers and 30 escort ships appearing just outside Mars' orbit. The message was clear. This is what real power looks like. Captain watched them from the Defiance Bridge. Her ship was part of Earth's home defense fleet, along with 40 other vessels. On paper, they were outmatched. "They're hailing us," her communications officer reported. "Put them through." The commander appeared on screen. "Human vessel, you will relay this message to your leaders. The Empire does not bow to threats from primitives. We are here to remind you of reality. Your ambassador died because he forgot his place. Do not make the same mistake." Stared at the alien commander with cold eyes. "Message received. Now let me give you one. You have 45 hours remaining. I suggest you use them to reconsider." The commander cut the transmission with a snarl. On Earth, Admiral watched the battle group on his displays. His staff waited nervously for orders to engage. "Sir," General Park said, "they're within striking range of Mars colony. Should we move to intercept?" "No," replied. "Let them think they've made their point. Let them feel safe." The hours counted down. The ambassador refused to meet with again. The Coalition Council called emergency sessions, debating sanctions and peacekeeping forces. Everyone expected humanity to back down. They did not understand what was coming. With 6 hours remaining, Dr. Min entered the war room. She was daughter, a weapons physicist who had requested immediate assignment after her father's funeral. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Admiral, the targeting systems are ready. All stealth corvettes have their coordinates." Looked at her carefully. "Are you sure you want to be part of this?" "My father died believing in peace," she replied. "The least I can do is make sure his death means something." The deadline passed. The celebrated. Their ambassador gave a public address, mocking humanity's empty threats. The battle group near Earth increased their patrol radius, practically daring the human fleet to engage. Then Admiral gave a single order: execute operation. 15 ships appeared simultaneously in orbit around them. The stealth corvettes had jumped through space undetected, bypassing every sensor net, every patrol, every defense. They materialized directly above the largest cities. They did not fire weapons. They did not attack. They simply broadcast a message, sent on every frequency in every language to every device on the planet below. Admiral's face appeared on billions of screens. "People of the Empire, your leaders murdered our ambassador. They called it a lesson. They said we were too primitive to understand our place. Today, we teach them a lesson in return. These 15 ships could destroy your capital cities right now. Your defenses could not stop them in time. Your fleet is too far away to help. We could kill millions in the next 5 minutes. But we will not. This is mercy, the only mercy you will receive." The corvettes jumped away before defense systems could even lock weapons. On Earth, the battle group received the broadcast at the same moment. The commander's face went pale as he understood. Humans had just proven they could strike anywhere, anytime. The technological advantage they had assumed was a lie. Captain allowed herself a small smile as she watched the ships begin an emergency retreat. They jumped away within minutes, racing back to defend there. "Helm," she said calmly, "take us to the Mars shipyards. We have a fleet to prepare." On Archon Prime, Ambassador addressed the stunned Coalition Council one more time. "The Empire has made their choice. As of this moment, humanity is at war. Any species that aids will be considered hostile. Any species that remains neutral will be respected. This is not conquest. This is justice." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We gave you a chance to solve this peacefully. You laughed at us. You called us primitive. You murdered our ambassador and called it a lesson. Now you will learn what humans are truly capable of." The council chamber fell silent. Admiral watched from Earth as the military machine humanity had built in secret began to move. Fleet after fleet departed from hidden bases. Troops boarded transport ships. Weapons systems came online. "Sir," General Park said quietly, "this is really happening." "Yes," replied. "Send the word to all commands, no restraint. We end this quickly." The galaxy was about to learn a hard truth. Patience was not weakness. Diplomacy was not cowardice. And humanity, when pushed beyond its limits, was the most dangerous species in known space. The first week of the war shattered every assumption the galaxy held about humanity. Commander Leda sat in the pilot seat of the stealth corvette Shadow's Edge, reviewing her mission parameters. Her ship was one of 15 that they didn't know existed. Small, fast, and completely invisible to standard sensors, the corvettes were humanity's ace in the hole. "Ma'am," her sensor officer called out, "we're approaching the communication relay at Station Theta. No signs of detection." "Good," they replied. "Deploy the infiltration package and prepare to jump." Within minutes, human cyber warfare programs were spreading through the military network like a virus. Back on Earth, Doctor's team watched as system after system fell under their control. Fleet movements, supply lines, command communications, all of it suddenly visible to human intelligence. "We're in," said softly, thinking of her friend. Every order they give will know about it before their own ships do. Admiral studied the intelligence flowing across his displays. They had mobilized 2,000 warships, forming defensive lines around their core worlds. It was an impressive force, but now humanity knew exactly where every ship was positioned. General Park began Phase 2. Yes, sir, all fleets are moving into position now. What happened next shocked the command. Human ships appeared throughout their territory, but not where expected. They ignored the heavily defended core worlds and instead struck at supply depots, repair stations, and communication nodes. Small, precise strikes that caused no civilian casualties but crippled military infrastructure. The fleet commanders found themselves unable to coordinate. Their long-range communications were jammed. Their supply lines were cut. Orders took hours to reach distant fleets instead of minutes. Then came the drones. Chief Engineer Wu Jinho had designed them specifically for this war. Millions of small, AI-controlled strike craft launched from human carriers. Each one was barely larger than a missile, armed with shaped charges designed to penetrate ship hulls. They overwhelmed point defense systems through sheer numbers. Where one drone was shot down, 10 more got through. Within 3 days, they had lost over 300 ships to drone swarms alone. Sir, they are requesting a ceasefire, a communications officer reported. Admiral's expression remained cold. Tell them we'll cease fire when they surrender the murderers, not before. Captain led the Third Fleet in a direct assault on a military stronghold in the system. Her ships faced a defensive network that should have been impenetrable. They had stationed 500 vessels there, protected by orbital weapons platforms and planetary shields. The battle lasted 4 hours. Humanity used every weapon they had been developing in secret. Rail guns firing projectiles at relativistic speeds punched through shields like paper. Electronic warfare shut down targeting systems, and the drone swarms turned the space around into a death trap. When the commander finally surrendered, 300 of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 12 vessels. Stood on her bridge, watching the ships power down their weapons. She felt no satisfaction, only a grim determination to see this through. Send a message to all personnel, she ordered. You fought bravely, you followed your orders, but your leaders committed murder and called it justice. We're here to correct that lie. Colonel Han Bora and her Reaper Special Forces team moved through the corridors of a command station. They had infiltrated during the chaos of a drone attack, wearing captured armor and using hacked security codes. Their mission was simple: capture the station's commanding officer alive. Han moved with practiced efficiency. Her team had trained for years in zero-gravity combat, close quarters fighting, and deep infiltration. The security forces never knew what hit them. Within 20 minutes, they had the commander secured and were exfiltrating to their insertion ship. Han activated her communicator as they jumped away. Package secured, heading to the extraction point. Back on Earth, the captured officer was interrogated carefully. Humans wanted information, but more importantly, they wanted the truth. Who ordered Ambassador's murder? Who planned it? Who approved it? The officer eventually talked. The order had come from the High Command itself, approved by the Emperor. It was meant to be a message, a show of power that would put humanity in its place. Dr. Min listened to the recording of the interrogation. Her hands shook slightly as she heard them discuss her father's death like it was a tactical decision. Nothing personal, just politics. I want to deploy the FTL disruptor, she told Admiral. He looked at her carefully. That weapon hasn't been fully tested. We don't know the full effects. I know enough. It'll disable their faster-than-light drives in a 3-system radius for 48 hours. Their fleet will be trapped, unable to retreat or regroup. Considered it. The weapon was dangerous, unpredictable, but it would give humanity a decisive advantage. Deploy it in the sector. That's where their main fleet is gathering. Min nodded and left to prepare. She thought about her father constantly. He would have hated this war, hated the violence, hated the destruction, but he would have understood why it was necessary. The FTL disruptor activated near the main fleet. Within seconds, every ship in the sector found their jump drives offline. They were stranded, unable to escape. The human fleet arrived 6 hours later. Admiral sent a simple message. Surrender or be destroyed. You have 1 hour. The fleet commander was no fool. His ships were trapped, outnumbered, and he surrendered. 3 weeks into the war, the Empire was collapsing. Dozens of their worlds had fallen. Their fleet was scattered and demoralized. Their supply lines were non-existent, and their leadership was finally beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. But humanity was not satisfied, not yet. General Park's Marines began landing on military installations. They offered each garrison the same choice: Surrender the war criminals among you, or be treated as enemy combatants. Most chose surrender. The soldiers were tired, scared, and increasingly angry at their own leadership for starting a war they couldn't win. On one world, a planetary governor met General Park personally to discuss terms. "Why are you doing this?" the governor asked. "You've already won, why continue?" Park's expression was hard. "Because your empire murdered an innocent man and called it a lesson. Because you laughed at us when we asked for justice. Because you thought we were weak." "We were wrong," the governor admitted quietly. "Yes, you were. Now face the consequences." Commander Lee's corvette intercepted a communication from the High Command. They were abandoning there, fleeing to a fortress on their moon. They believed they could hide there, wait out the war, and eventually rebuild. Lee forwarded the intelligence to Admiral immediately. "Sir, we have them. The entire High Command, including the Emperor. They're running." Smiled grimly. "Send Colonel Han, it's time to end this." Han received her orders within the hour. Her mission was the most dangerous yet. Infiltrate a fortress designed to withstand orbital bombardment, fight through thousands of guards, and capture the leadership alive. She assembled her best team and began planning. "This is what we've been training for," she told them. "These are the people who ordered Ambassador's murder. We're going to bring them to justice." On Archon Prime, Ambassador addressed the Coalition Council again. Several species had begun quietly supporting humanity, sharing intelligence and providing safe harbor for damaged ships. Others remained neutral, watching carefully. Only the stood alone. "The war will end when justice is served," announced. "Not before. We gave you a chance for peace. You chose war, now live with that choice." Colonel Han Bora stood in the briefing room aboard the assault carrier Justice, studying holographic displays of the moon fortress. It was a massive structure, built into the moon itself, with kilometers of tunnels and thousands of soldiers protecting the High Command. "The fortress has never fallen," her intelligence officer reported. "It's designed to withstand sustained orbital bombardment. The shields can absorb anything we throw at them." "Then we won't bombard it," Han replied. "We're going inside." Her team consisted of 200 Reaper operators, the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. They had trained for years in extreme conditions, mastering every form of combat. Now they would face their ultimate test. Captain's fleet established orbit around the planet below was eerily quiet. Most of the military forces had withdrawn to defend the moon fortress. Civilian population centers showed no resistance. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we're receiving messages from the planet. Civilian authorities want to negotiate surrender." Nodded. "Tell them to maintain order and cooperate. We have no quarrel with civilians. Our business is with their leadership." On the moon, Colonel Han's team launched their assault. They came down in stealth drop pods, landing in a crater 3 kilometers from the fortress entrance. The journey to the outer wall took an hour, moving carefully to avoid sensors. "Charges set," her demolitions expert reported. The explosion tore through the fortress's outer security door. Han's team poured through the breach before the defenders could react. What followed was brutal, close-quarters combat through narrow corridors and defensive positions. The soldiers fought hard. They knew they were defending their emperor and their high command, but they had never faced anything like the Reapers. Han's team moved with precision, using smoke grenades and overwhelming firepower to advance meter by meter. "Push forward," Han ordered, firing controlled bursts down a corridor. "Don't give them time to organize." Admiral watched the assault from orbit, receiving updates every few minutes. The operation was being broadcast throughout the galaxy on every channel. He wanted everyone to see this. He wanted the universe to understand what happened when you murdered human diplomats. Dr. Min sat beside him, her face pale as she watched her father's killers being hunted through their own fortress. "Is this what he would have wanted?" she asked quietly. Considered the question carefully. "Your father wanted peace, but he also wanted justice. Sometimes you can't have one without the other." Inside the fortress, Han's team fought deeper. They encountered heavy resistance at every checkpoint. They threw everything at them: automated turrets, armored guards, even suicide bombers. But the Reapers adapted to each threat, their training and technology proving superior. After 3 hours of constant fighting, they reached the command center. The Emperor and his high command were barricaded behind heavy blast doors, protected by their elite guard. Han positioned shaped charges around the entrance while her team provided covering fire. "Blow it," she ordered. The doors exploded inward. The Reapers stormed through the smoke and fire. The elite guards fought to the last soldier, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Within minutes, the command center was secured. The Emperor stood in the center of the room, surrounded by his advisors and generals. These were the beings who had ordered Ambassador's murder. These were the ones who had called it a lesson. And lowered her weapon slightly, breathing hard. You are under arrest for war crimes and the murder of Ambassador of Earth. Surrender immediately. The Emperor stared at her with undisguised hatred. We will never surrender to primitives. Your fleet is destroyed. Your worlds are occupied. Your fortress has fallen. You've already lost. The only question now is whether you surrender or die. One of the generals moved suddenly, reaching for a weapon. Han's team reacted instantly. The general fell dead before he could fire a shot. Anyone else? Han asked coldly. The remaining leadership slowly raised their hands in surrender. Han activated her communicator. Admiral, package secured. All targets alive and in custody. We're ready for extraction. The news spread across the galaxy within minutes. The High Command had been captured. The war was effectively over. Captain received a communication from the planetary government. They were ready to surrender unconditionally. The military commanders, still free, wanted to discuss terms. There are no terms, replied. Lay down your weapons. Surrender the war criminals among you. Cooperate with coalition peacekeepers. That's all we require. One by one, military forces across their territory surrendered. Some fought on for a few more days, but without leadership or coordination, they were quickly overwhelmed. The war that everyone expected to last years was over in 3 months. Ambassador stood before the Galactic Coalition Council, presenting evidence of war crimes. The recordings, documents, and testimony painted a clear picture. The murder of Ambassador had been ordered at the highest levels. It was premeditated, calculated, and meant to intimidate humanity. The coalition voted unanimously to try the captured leadership for war crimes. The trial was held on Archon Prime in the same chamber where had been murdered. The symbolism was deliberate. Dr. Nu attended every day, sitting in the gallery, watching as the truth came out. The Emperor tried to justify his actions. It was a political decision. The human was interfering with coalition security. We acted in the interest of stability. The prosecutor, a human lawyer named Song, responded coldly. You murdered an unarmed diplomat during a peace conference. You violated every principle of diplomatic immunity. You committed an act of terrorism and called it policy. The evidence was overwhelming. The defendants had no real defense. The tribunal found them guilty on all counts. The sentences were severe. Life imprisonment for those who planned and ordered the assassination. Lengthy prison terms for those who carried it out or covered it up. The Emperor himself received the harshest sentence of all. But humanity demanded one more thing. Admiral addressed the Coalition Council one final time. The Empire will be dissolved. Their military will be reduced to a defensive force only. Their government will be restructured under coalition oversight. And most importantly, diplomatic personnel throughout the galaxy will receive new protections. The Council agreed. New laws were passed. Acts of violence against ambassadors were now treated as declarations of war. Diplomatic immunity became absolute, and humanity gained a permanent seat on the Coalition Security Council. The war had cost humanity dearly. 200,000 dead, both military and civilian. Dozens of ships destroyed. Several colonies damaged, but they had achieved their goal. Justice for Ambassador. General Park oversaw the demilitarization of territory. His Marines remained on their worlds for months, ensuring compliance. To his surprise, many civilians expressed gratitude. Their own government had started a war they couldn't win, and ordinary people had paid the price. We were told you were monsters, a civilian told him during a supply distribution, but you're just soldiers doing a job. Park nodded. We never wanted this war. Your leaders forced our hand. We're not monsters. We're just people who refuse to let murder go unanswered. Commander Lee returned to Earth with her corvette. The stealth ships were no longer secret, but they remained effective. Other species now knew humanity had capabilities they had hidden. It made them respect human power, but also fear it. Do you think we went too far? Her second officer asked. Lee thought about Ambassador, about the casual way they had murdered him, about their arrogant assumption that humanity would do nothing. No, she said firmly. We went exactly as far as we needed to. Colonel Han received a medal for her role in capturing the High Command. She attended the ceremony but felt no pride. She had done her job. Justice had been served. That was enough. Afterward, she requested retirement. She was tired of war, tired of violence. She wanted to teach, to train the next generation, to make sure they were ready if diplomacy ever failed again. Dr. Min stood at her father's grave on Earth. The war was over. His murderers were in prison. Justice had been done. But he was still gone. I'm sorry, Father, she said quietly. You died trying to build bridges. We had to build weapons instead. But maybe now your dream of real peace has a chance. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity could be patient. Humanity could be diplomatic. But humanity would not tolerate the murder of its people. Admiral Sung Ho stood at the observation window of the Coalition Security Council building, looking out at Archon Prime. The station had changed since the war. There were more human ships docked now, more human personnel walking the corridors. Humanity was no longer a minor voice in galactic politics. But the price had been terrible. Admiral, a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Ambassador Haywon, now Earth's Secretary of Galactic Affairs. The Council is ready for your final address. Nodded and followed her to the chamber. This would be his last official act before retirement. After 40 years of service, he was ready to step away. Let younger officers handle peacetime. The council chamber was full. Representatives from every species watched as he took his position. Some looked at him with respect, others with fear, a few with barely concealed resentment. Didn't care, he had done what needed to be done. Members of the Galactic Coalition, he began, his voice steady and calm. I stand before you one last time to speak about the war between humanity and the Empire, a war we never wanted, a war that cost 200,000 human lives. He paused, letting that number sink in. Ambassador died in this very chamber. He was murdered while trying to build bridges while working for peace. His killers called it a lesson. They said humans were too primitive to understand galactic politics. They were wrong. We spent 30 years being patient. We listened to insults. We endured sabotage. We accepted that other species saw us as children, and we waited for the day when diplomacy would be enough. But when you murder our ambassadors, when you laugh at our calls for justice, when you mistake our patience for weakness, then you force us to show you what we really are. We are engineers who turned science into weapons. We are soldiers who trained for wars we hoped would never come. We are a species that remembers every insult, every injury, every injustice, and when pushed beyond reason, we respond with overwhelming force. The chamber was silent. Words carried weight because everyone knew they were true. They had seen what humanity could do. I hope this war taught you something important. Not that humans are strong, though we proved that. Not that we have advanced weapons, though we do. The real lesson is simpler than that. Never mistake patience for weakness. Never assume diplomacy means we cannot fight. And never, ever harm our people and expect no consequences. He stepped back from the podium. That is all I have to say. Thank you for your time. The council chamber remained quiet as he left. No one applauded. No one protested. They simply watched a man who had changed the galaxy walk away. Captain Wu stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Defiant II. She had been promoted to Rear Admiral and given command of Earth's diplomatic protection fleet. Her mission was simple: make sure what happened to Ambassador never happened again. Her fleet consisted of 50 ships, all heavily armed, all ready to respond within minutes to any threat against human diplomats. Other species had complained about the militarization of diplomatic missions. Humanity didn't care. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving a distress call from the Tarn diplomatic mission. They're under attack by pirates. Didn't hesitate. All ships' battle stations jumped to their coordinates immediately. The fleet arrived within 10 minutes. The pirates took one look at the human warships and fled. The Tarn ambassador sent a message of gratitude. Smiled slightly. Humanity was using its military power to protect others now. It felt right, like they were finally living up to Ambassador's vision, just in a different way. Dr. Nuss stood at the entrance of the newly opened Institute for Galactic Peace. It had taken 2 years to build, funded by donations from across human space. The institute would train diplomats, study conflict resolution, and work to prevent future wars. A statue stood in the entrance hall, showing him in his formal diplomatic robes, smiling gently. The inscription read, "He believed in understanding. He died for that belief. We honor him by continuing his work." Touch the statue's base gently. I miss you, old friend, but your dream isn't dead. We just had to fight for it first. The Institute's first class included students from 15 different species. They would learn about diplomacy, about human history, about the mistakes that led to war. Hopefully, they would build a better future. Colonel Hanbora taught at Earth's military academy now. Her students were young officers, eager to learn from a war hero. She never sugarcoated the reality of combat. War is not glorious, she told her class. It's not exciting, it's terrifying and brutal, and it costs lives. We won against them because we were better prepared, better trained, and more determined. But we lost friends, we lost family, we lost pieces of ourselves. Your job is to be so good at fighting that no one wants to fight you. Your job is to be so prepared that wars end quickly if they start. Your job is to protect what Ambassador believed in, even if you have to use violence to do it. The students listened intently. They knew Han had captured the high command personally. They knew she had seen the worst of combat. Her words carried authority. But never forget, she added softly, that every time we have to fight, diplomacy has failed. War should always be the last option, never the first choice. Dr. Min worked in a civilian research facility now. She had helped build weapons of war, and now she used those same skills to develop peaceful technologies, medical equipment, environmental systems, energy solutions that could help colonies thrive. Her father would have been proud. She often visited his grave, bringing flowers and telling him about her work. In her mind, she could hear his gentle voice encouraging her, reminding her that even from tragedy, good things could grow. Ambassador addressed the Global Assembly on the anniversary of the war's end. "We have changed as a species," she said. "We are no longer the newcomers, the primitives, the species that others can dismiss. We are respected now, but with that respect comes responsibility. We must never become what we fought against. We must never use our power to bully others. We must remember why we fought, what we fought for, and what we lost." Ambassador believed in peace. We failed to achieve peace through diplomacy alone, but we can honor his memory by using our strength to protect peace, to defend the innocent, and to ensure that no other ambassador dies the way he did. The assembly gave her a standing ovation. On Archon Prime, a memorial stood in the station's main plaza. It was made of simple stone, carved with the names of every human who died in the war. At the top was Ambassador's name, larger than the others, with his final speech about cooperation carved into the stone. Beside the memorial was a second monument, this one listing demands that had been made and met: new laws protecting diplomats, new security protocols, new mechanisms for resolving disputes peacefully. The inscription read, "They sought peace, they were given war, they won both." Tourists from dozens of species visited the memorial daily, some to pay respects, some to understand, some simply to remember that war has consequences. General Park walked through a city during a routine inspection. The occupation had ended a year ago, but human peacekeepers remained to ensure stability. He was surprised by how normal things looked. Markets were open. Children played in parks. Life went on. A civilian approached him cautiously. "General Park." He turned, "Yes. I wanted to thank you. My family was against the war from the beginning. When your forces came, you treated us with respect. You gave us food when supplies ran low. You protected us from criminals. You were nothing like what our government told us." Park nodded slowly. "We were never at war with your people, just your leaders. I know, many of us know now. We were lied to. We're sorry for what happened to your ambassador." "Thank you," Park replied sincerely. "Your apology means something." The galaxy had settled into a new normal. Humanity was a major power now, respected and feared in equal measure. Other species studied human history, trying to understand the species that could be both diplomatic and devastating. Some found it terrifying, others found it reassuring, but everyone understood that humanity had earned its place among the stars. Admiral stood at Ambassador's grave one last time before his retirement. Captain, now an admiral herself, stood beside him. Neither spoke for a long moment. "Did we do right by him?" asked quietly. Considered the question carefully. He would have hated the war. He would have mourned every death, but he would have understood why we fought. Would he forgive us? I think he would. He believed in humanity and our better nature. We fought not for conquest or revenge, but for justice. We fought to make sure his death meant something. That's what he would have wanted. Nodded slowly. Then let's make sure we never have to fight like that again. Let's make sure the next generation lives in the galaxy he dreamed of. They stood in silence, two soldiers who had won a war, now working for peace. Above them, Earth's sky was clear and bright. Beyond it, among countless stars, human ships patrolled and protected. Diplomats worked to build relationships. Scientists pushed the boundaries of knowledge. And every person remembered the lesson learned at such a high cost. Patience was not weakness. Diplomacy was humanity's first choice. But if forced into war, humanity would fight with everything they had. They would not be dismissed. They would not be victims. They would not allow their people to be murdered without consequence. The galaxy knew this now, and in knowing perhaps there would be real peace at last. Ambassador had died believing in peace. Humanity had fought a war to make that peace possible. Now they would honor his memory by maintaining it, by protecting it, by ensuring that his dream lived on even though he could not. That was the true victory, not the battles won but the peace that followed, Not the enemies defeated, but the future secured. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, and their promise to the man who had believed in them when no one else did.